Hello everybody and welcome back to TulipTV. Katja, good to see you.
Hey Tom, leuk je er weer te zien.
Yeah.
This is what's coming up this week.
Deze week krijgen we dit.
Coming up this week on TulipTV, we attend a water management and mitigation seminar, enjoy a taste of Dutch soccer fans at Euro 2012, and there is another episode of biking through Holland. All coming up this week on TulipTV.
This program is sponsored by Dutch, the full-color English language magazine about the Netherlands and its people, at home and abroad. Canada to Leave is the online community for the Dutch living in Canada and the Canadians living in the Netherlands. Canada to Leave, wherever you live.
Well, as you know, Holland has a very strong history with water management, and recently there was a water management and mitigation seminar here in Vancouver. So Katja, what actually did they do at the seminar?
So what happened there is Emergency Management BC and the Dutch General Consulate, who were the organizers, they brought together a whole group of experts from the Netherlands and Canada to discuss government solutions, to discuss flood management solutions, and to see how can they maybe learn from each other and work together in the future.
And here's a report.
The Minister of Economic Affairs said last June that floods can never be ruled out, no matter how strong or how high the dikes are constructed. She is right. There is no greater force than that of Mother Nature. But today we have the good fortune of bringing together two nations of experts in their respective fields of flood management to discuss best practice for preparing and responding to floods. Because the damage and impacts of floods knows no boundaries.
There is a saying, while God created the earth, the Dutch created the Netherlands. And maybe there is a kernel of truth in that. 1/3 of the Netherlands is under the level of the sea. So without our defenses, without our Delta plan, we don't have dry feet. In the 21st century, we are facing new challenges. The sea level is rising, coastal storms, erosion, more rain, even periodic droughts. I mean, the differences are becoming bigger. Salt intrusion, many challenges. So the old higher dike approach is no longer sustainable, nor affordable. We are learning to adapt to live with water, not always fight it. So our DNA is mutating, away from flood resistance at any cost to flood accommodation.
Well, here you have a small picture about the Dutch Delta, and it will tell you a little bit about why prevention is so important to the Netherlands as a whole. If you look at the western part of the Netherlands, also known as the Randstad, in which all the major cities are located, and I'm talking then about Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, but also my hometown Utrecht, you will see they're all lying below sea level. So you can imagine that if a breach of a dike takes place, and especially on the coastal areas, it will have a great impact on those areas itself. But nowadays, we also have to take account of the impact of river surges. You can see that in the Netherlands, we are connected to the major rivers in Europe, like the Rhine and the Meuse River. They all come from abroad, but we will have the major impact if a surge takes place, and we will have to be prepared for that. Of course, in the European context, in the context of the European Union, we are already cooperating with neighboring countries, which is quite important because then we can also have an alert system. If, for instance, we will have, well, we don't have really the freshets like you have here, but we will have a lot of melting water from the Alps coming down the Rhine River to the Netherlands, and we have to prepare in case of a flood. I was invited here for this interesting seminar about flood management and mitigation, especially because I told the people attending a little bit about how we are managing our governmental issues. It means that in the Netherlands we have different layers of government, and it means that we have to cooperate with each other in finding the solutions to fight flooding and to manage the water. In that way, we also have a number of projects going on in the Netherlands. Among ones is Room for the River, which is a national program involving up to 30 projects divided alongside the different rivers that are crossing in the Netherlands.
I think one of the big factors, and one of the things I really want to hear more about from the Dutch as well, is that risk-based approach. How do we get to the point where we really start having a reasonable criteria we can go through to clearly identify, quantify, and evaluate risk, and then make our decisions based on that? I think that'll be the key. In order to do that risk-based approach, it's going to involve all levels of government and the citizens as well. So I think that collaborative approach is extremely important to us as well. So in terms of flood hazard management and mitigation, what are we talking about? And I think it's important to hear this. It's the sustained action. It's the long-term action to help protect against the hazard that we're really going for. Any short-term, response activity is really not mitigation. And it's also important, I think, to point out that we're talking about the structural and the non-structural. And what's really interesting is Public Safety Canada states clearly that the non-structural measures, so the land use planning, the education, the information, those types of planning activities actually pay off far more than actual structural. But as we heard from Ralph, there's no way, we have to find some balance between the structural and the non-structural in order to be effective.
Hi, I'm Carol Losky, the Director of the Flood Protection Program with Emergency Management BC. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today to share our experiences and learn from the Dutch experience. They have done just an incredible amount of work and great lessons learned from them. In terms of BC, we really are really enthusiastic about learning from the Dutch because we just have such a breadth of disasters and events that we actually deal with. In fact, there's over 50 known events that we deal with on a regular basis, flooding being the most common, but we have huge threat in terms of earthquakes, even tsunamis, and of course the wildfires that come every year. And so we are here today to learn about a variety of different ways. What can we do better in terms of collaborating with our other jurisdictions, collaborating amongst ourselves to really look at how we can address our mitigation issues and our disaster issues from a holistic, region-wide point of view. We need to really get to these things involving everyone, and that's our priority today. And hearing about how the Dutch have been able to achieve that and move forward, we're just so delighted to be here and to learn from them, and we can't wait to get back and start putting some of this in action.
Can the Dutch maintain living in this delta for another 100 years? That was the question. Can we still live here in 100 years from now? Or is it the end of the story of the Netherlands? And the answer, fortunately, was yes. But you have to increase your safety standard, maybe to a level of 10. Ralph showed you the picture of the urbanization. And between 1960 and present day, that was, I heard an ah going through the crowd. And so the amount of invested capital, but also the vulnerability of the way we live with all our infrastructure, all the pipes that are in the ground and all the cables and the telecommunication going on. I mean, if a flood comes, it is really disastrous. So, and the standards are still from the 60s. So if all of that has increased, then to keep track with that, theoretically you would have to increase your standards by the same amount to get to the same risk. Risk being defined as the chance of a flood occurring times its economic consequences or consequences in terms of lost lives. That's the definition of the risk that we have adopted. So, and they expressed this committee, State Committee, as a factor of 10.
My name is Peter Glass. I am the chairman of one of the water boards in the Netherlands, and I'm also the president of the Association of Regional Water Authorities in the Netherlands. And I was delighted to be invited here in Richmond today and be able to speak with many people involved in flood management and flood mitigation, which is a big thing in the Netherlands because we live in a delta, but it's also a big issue here. And I think that we can learn a lot from each other. The Netherlands, we have been living there maybe for 1,000 years already in a decreasing, ever lower country at the end of major European rivers. And over the centuries, we've managed to keep our feet dry by building dikes, having windmills, and now we have pumps, and we have the water boards to maintain all of this infrastructure. And I've learned that here in British Columbia and in this lower mainlands, there is a problem with flood protection as well. So I'm looking forward to having discussions this afternoon again with all the specialists here, all the people involved, and perhaps we can establish some kind of a cooperation to do this more often in the future.
From the time that we're at a bankful stage on the river where there's basically nothing happening to the time we're in full disaster response mode is only about a week. So for a large river, it responds extremely quickly. So what's at risk? We've got 75,000 hectares protected by 365 kilometers of dikes, that's between Agassiz and Richmond. 58 dike rings managed by 29 diking authorities. About 500,000 people live and work in the floodplain, and over 2 million people depend on the infrastructure. While we don't have any recent quantitative flood risk assessment studies for the whole valley, the last one was done in 1973, we believe that a recurrence of the 1894 flood with dike failures would cause tens of billions of dollars of damage.
Hey, well, I'm Neil Peters. I'm the Provincial Inspector of Dikes, and I've been involved in flood management in BC for over 20 years. And I'm very excited to be at this seminar with the Netherlands and BC because I think there's a lot that BC can learn from the Netherlands experience. In BC, we've only had experience with the river for a little over 100 years, and it's not long enough really to form in our psyche, in our psychology of dealing with floods, whereas Holland has had several hundred years. I think one of the key things that we need to learn is that this isn't something that flood management is not something you can just do one day and walk away from. It's something that you have to build into your governance systems, and I would really like to see some new laws in British Columbia that enshrined an ongoing flood protection program into our basic institutions.
The government proposed via the Room for the River project to create a bypass, but the regional parties, they were looking at other options. They were looking at extending the railway line. They were looking at upgrading the motorways, extending development and houses, almost 6,000 houses. And from nature and recreational perspective, there are also different plans for the future. So how could that be merged into a bypass channel? So the region, they got together and they combined their future spatial ambitions. And it was a long and extensive job. We worked together with them. It was a project of a couple of years, but at the end there was a program put in place. There was a project put in place of which the government actually said, this is better than our own plan. So they decided to swap plans. And the IJssel Delta project, as you can see now, it actually combines nature development, transport development, housing development, recreational development, but also the challenging hydraulic criteria out of the Room of the River project. So by having this in place, all different criteria are met, the regional authorities are happy, the municipalities and the water boards are on board, and the region is developed in a better way this way. Thank you for your attention.
the enthusiasm and interest from the Dutch Consulate, from Johannes when he arrived here, and from that, the involvement of Richmond and Emergency Management BC. The support enabled us, Richmond, to be right here. It's an incredible venue, and we really appreciate that. And we've even arranged for some low tide, so you can see the fine dikes that have been built. Hello, I'm Adrian Corlett. I'm a principal with Delcan, and we're very pleased to be able to be part of this event today. It's something we've seen as we've worked with the various municipalities over the years, with Richmond and Surrey, Delta and New Westminster, and we saw this need for a forum where we could bring the high levels of government from the Netherlands together with the high levels from British Columbia, and we could see what we could learn from each other. And we really hope that this starts a discussion as flood protection is incredibly important. Very grateful to all our partners in doing this, which would be City of Richmond and DHV and the Dutch Consulate. Thank you very much.
This program is sponsored by Dutch, the full-color English language magazine about the Netherlands and its people, at home and abroad.
Well, clearly we are on a football mood here, and Katja, it's great to see you supporting the Dutch.
Yeah, what else am I supposed to do? Our Rode Duivels, the Belgian national team, hasn't been in any World Cup or European Cup since many years.
That's a shame. I believe we've got some coverage of Euro 2012. What can you tell us about that?
We met a very nice Swiss-Canadian director, and he's actually making a documentary film about soccer fans. And he went to the Oranje camp in the Ukraine to have a look at what the hardcore fans are doing there.
Well, those of you who remember FIFA's Football World Cup 2 years ago will remember the hordes of orange-clad people driving through Africa down to South Africa. So I have a feeling we're going to see something quite similar in the Ukraine and in Poland.
Let's have a look.
Hey, what's the score going to be tonight?
Yeah!
What's the score tonight?
3-0.
No. 0-2. 0-2. Who's going to score the goals?
Huntelaar van Persie.
All right. You have a lot of faith in Huntelaar?
No. we have to. It's the only thing that keeps us going. Eh?
Willem, mooie naam. Zeg, ben jij een echte Nederlander?
Ja.
Oh, you speak Dutch, Willem? No?
But I can understand.
And you are for the Dutch, hè? Hoe vind jij het hier vandaag?
Het is super gezellig, maar ik ben een beetje upset dat het zo shit gaat vandaag.
Ja. Nou, woon je al lang hier in Vancouver?
Iets over een jaar.
Oh, dat is goed. Ja. En heb je nou een groep Nederlanders bij of een groep Canadezen?
Ze zijn allemaal Canadees, maar eentje heeft Nederlandse ouders, maar ze heeft geen oranje aan. Dus,
oké.
Het wordt dit zo eens, denk ik.
En iedereen ondersteunt jou. Everybody is supporting you.
Ja.
En jullie zijn voor een heel bijzondere situatie hier, hè? Wat is dat?
We zijn op huwelijksreis.
We zijn net 8 dagen naar Hawaii geweest. Vandaar was we een lekker kleurtje hebben. En we zijn nu vandaag aangekomen in Vancouver. We gaan een camper huren en we gaan 10 dagen door Canada trekken.
Nou, dat is heel leuk. Hartelijk gefeliciteerd. Wanneer ben je getrouwd?
2 juni, 10 dagen geleden.
Oh, fantastisch. Ik wens jullie een heerlijke huwelijksreis en ga maar naar het binnenland. Daar is meer zon dan hier.
Ja, tuurlijk.
Succes nog.
Dankjewel.
My dad was born in Friesland, and my mom is also from Holland, so Dutch blood.
And that hat is your heritage family item or something?
Yes, my family always comes from Holland and they bring me paraphernalia, so they always bring me all sorts of stuff.
Now, what are you planning in 2014?
Well, we'll be keeping the house here at Manchester. This will be Dutch house, and hopefully we'll get either a big Grolsch or Heineken sponsorship. And we're going to make the whole place orange and put a bit more into it this time. We had 6 weeks to plan it this time, but with 2 years to plan it, it will be a very big event.
Okay, I wish you success and good luck with that.
Thank you very much.
Kan je Nederlands?
What's that?
Kan je ook Nederlands?
Do I speak it?
Ja?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Go Holland.
Go Holland.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
Veel geluk met TulipTV.
Dankjewel hoor.
Alsjeblieft.
Bye.
Bye.
Canada to Leave is the online community for the Dutch living in Canada and the Canadians living in the Netherlands. Canada to Leave, wherever you live. This program is sponsored by Dutch, the full-color English language magazine about the Netherlands and its people, at home and abroad.
And now to another episode of 10 Days Bike Trip through Holland.
Day 3, welcome to Madurodam, the smallest city in the world. Queen Beatrix was once the mayor here, but she has since given up her title to run a bigger country. The new rule is that it now goes to a student. Let's go take a look.
Here we are returning to Schiphol Airport, and the history of Schiphol actually goes back to medieval times when this was all a big swampy area, and they would control the level of the water so that boats would come in and get trapped. It would be just shallow enough that they would think they could come in and then they would get trapped. And so it became a graveyard for ships, and they called it Ship's Hell, and now it's Schiphol.
We are standing at KLM House number 26, home of World War I spy Mata Hari. Hello and welcome to The Hague. It is the third largest city here in the Netherlands. It is also home to the Parliament, the government, and Queen Beatrix, although it is not the capital of the Netherlands. That would be Amsterdam.
We're standing in front of the Peace Palace, which is home to the International Court of Justice, as well as the Palace Peace Library, which is partially funded by Andrew Carnegie, the American philanthropist.
This program is sponsored by Dutch, the full-color English language magazine about the Netherlands and its people, at home and abroad.
So that's our show for the week. Katja.
Thanks, Tom. We are independent producers. We don't receive any funding or grants. So if you would like to support us, go to our website and click on donations or contact us.
Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter or through Facebook, or do it the old-fashioned way and just speak to your friends.
That's it, and have a good weekend. Dag allemaal.
Tot volgende week.